Cool. This video is brought to you in part by Brilliant. Visit brilliant.org/makeanything for 20% off a year of Brilliant Premium. Hey friends, it's Devin here with Make Anything. I hope you liked my little intro animations. It's always fun to sneak in some stop motion when I can. And in case that intro didn't make it obvious, well, we've got a whole bunch of new Tippi Tree upgrades to look at today. Not only did I get around to modeling and printing out the winning designs from the Tippi Tree skin design competition, but I've also scoured through all your suggestions in the comments and elsewhere to bring in a bunch of other new models for the game. So everything you're seeing here today will be included in Tippi Tree. If you've already purchased the game, thank you so much. You can go back to My Mini Factory and download it again, and you'll get all of these upgrades for free. For everyone else, hopefully this will be some extra motivation to check out my game. I'm so excited and super grateful for how many people have already started printing and playing my game. So hopefully all these updates are just a little extra goodness and my way of saying thank you. So without further ado, let's take a look. In my last video, I already shared this beautiful print of the Tiki Tree, which is based on the winning skin design by Jen Day and Bill Drastel. I'm still absolutely in love with the look of this cool gray filament that I partnered with Green Gate 3D to make. Once again, that's 100% recycled PETG plastic, and it does such a great job of picking up every little detail in this model. And as good as this print looks in a single color, well, I just couldn't help but make this multicolor version. I mean, these leaves and the rocks were just asking for it. And just these few colored parts make such an impact. This is actually not a multicolor print, but several prints stuck together. So here's the Tiki Tree with the leaves and rocks removed, and then I went ahead and printed all those tiny parts separately in their respective colors down to these little tiny grain-sized rocks. And these things really are tiny, so I had to be very careful taking them off the printer so that I didn't lose any of these little tiny pieces. And it was also quite a task to glue them into place. It's a bit of a puzzle figuring out where everything goes, but I guess that's part of the fun in assembling this colored Tiki Tree. As usual, I went with my go-to adhesive, this E6000, to glue these parts into place. Just smearing some on the bottom of each piece and pressing it down. A little glob will do, and then for these tiny rocks I ended up using some tweezers to help me put them into place. And as you can see, I did get a bit sloppy, but the great thing about this E6000 is it's pretty easy to clean up, and that makes it a perfect choice for a messy maker like myself. Anyways, here's the end result once the glue was dry, and I think it came out absolutely great. The tree itself was printed with Polyalchemy's Walnut FX filament, while the leaves are Matterhacker's Build PLA, and I used their Tough PLA for the rocks, just because I liked the color. So yeah, that is the Tiki Tree skin as designed by Jen Day and Bill Drastel. And then we have our second winning design, which is this Leaky Hydrant by Renee von Kulvik. And while this one is a bit more simple, I think it's such a fun design and I'm absolutely in love with it. And this print is actually 5 parts, all printed separately, because I wanted to make sure this entire model could be printed without any support material or tricky overhangs of any kind. So splitting it up like this makes it really easy to print. And here you can see that happening on my Sovol SV01 using this really bright red PLA by RapRapper. As planned, it prints out in a breeze, and the assembly is actually pretty fun itself. You start with these 2 halves, which come together like this, and then you use this little end cap to hold it together. So there we've got our middle section of the hydrant, and now we can screw on the top, and the bottom screws on just the same. And there's our hydrant. I also left a little bit of extra space in the bottom here just enough to fit 8 US pennies. A little optional trick to weigh down the base a bit and make this leaky hydrant a little bit more stable. Of course, the base of this hydrant is still quite a bit smaller than the standard Tippi Tree, so let's consider it a slightly more difficult variation. Also, since this is a leaky hydrant, we're no longer dealing with leaves. So I printed out these beautiful blue water pieces. And one of the reasons I loved this design so much is because of this awesome color combination. It's all just so bright and cartoony, and I think it's just perfect for a game like this. Other than that, it's just like your standard game of Tippi Tree. So let's see what it takes to actually tip over this hydrant. Alright, so it's less stable, but definitely still playable. If you found regular Tippi Tree too easy, you might really like this leaky hydrant. Here's another variation of the standard Tippi Tree that I created. It's a split model that lets you separate the base from the top, and this was requested by several people, mostly to make for a more compact storage solution. It's got a bit of wobble to it, but for the most part, it's just like the original Tippi Tree. Of course, I always encourage bending the rules, so hey, maybe you want to play a super challenging version with no base at all. That'll make the leaky hydrant look like child's play. As I was developing Tippi Tree over the years, obviously I 3D printed all of my prototypes, but I also had an end goal of maybe making a manufactured product. And with manufacturing in mind, you definitely want to simplify things. So that's why I ended up with just the tree, a trunk, a branch, and a leaf. 4 parts that need to be molded to create the whole game, and that's a really great thing from a manufacturing point of view. I'm also really happy that I managed to make a really fun, functional game with so few parts. But with that said, I've been getting a lot of requests for variations, and well, now that it is a 3D printed game, there's no reason not to do that. So with that in mind, I revisited a lot of my original experiments with different shapes of leaves and such, and brought them back for these bonus parts. So now we've got quite a few new parts to play around with. A bunch of experimental trunks and leaves and other bits. I call these seeds, but yeah, a whole lot of funky parts. Now, most of these seeds don't actually have a real use in the standard game of Tippi Tree, but I just wanted to put them out there for you guys to mess around with and see how you could put them to use. I'm kind of excited to see what you'll do with these. It's pretty open-ended. That said, some of these parts are actually pretty handy. I really like this quad branch, which makes for a great starting piece that lets you really start building out in every direction. You can make some really interesting looking trees. I also quite like this narrow version of the branch, which could add some variation to your standard game. Then we've got some really weird pieces like this mirrored trunk, so that you can flip things on their head. And this is actually the perfect piece to make use of our split Tippi Tree. Now we can make a super tall tree. Or we could just take the base and stick it on top of our Tiki Tree like that. Give him a nice hairstyle. Yeah, like I said, these pieces are really a total free-for-all. However, the new pieces I'm most excited about have to be our birds here, as well as these berries. Early adopters of the game got this special exclusive piece right here, Earl the early bird. But for the rest of you, we've got these crows, which still need names, so if you have any good crow names, leave them in the comments. Anyways, these birds are also just bonus pieces for you to use as you wish. But I think a fun way to incorporate it into the game is to give everyone the opportunity to spend their turn placing a bird instead of using one of their leaves. So even though the whole point of the game is to get rid of your leaves, you might choose to spend your turn placing a pesky bird instead, just to throw off your opponents. After all, these birds do have a pretty strange shape, so they might be good for throwing a wrench in the game. Then we've got the berries, which I'm super excited about because they introduce a whole new mechanic to the game. Instead of stacking them, you can actually bring them up through the bottom of a leaf and twist them so they dangle, just like a real fruit. And these were actually an early mechanic that I was testing out with the game that I decided to get rid of, but I'm actually really happy to bring them back because they just look so fun and they are very interesting to play with. So again, you might throw them into the game by making them optional pieces where you can place a berry instead of a leaf, Or each player might start out with 2 or 3 berries that they also have to get rid of in order to win the game. For now, I'll leave that up to you. I'm also pretty excited about the little mechanism I created to snap these pieces together. I wanted to design these pieces to snap together really easily without requiring any glue or extra parts, but also to be removable if necessary. And I've actually got the perfect demo piece here. I accidentally printed this on its side, but it's perfect for showing off how that mechanism works. As you can see, we've got these 2 little tabs in here, and those grab onto these little cutouts here on the stem. So when you press this into place, those tabs snap over those cutouts and make for a really nice firm connection. And from the outside, it just looks nice and clean. It's a pretty tight fit, so I don't see them falling apart on accident. But if you decide to swap out fruits or recycle your filament, you can easily pop these apart. I know it's a pretty insignificant detail, but what can I say? Those are the kinds of things I get excited about. Here's another version of the berry I designed, and this is printed with Filamentum's Wizard Voodoo PLA, the same beautiful filament I used for the crows. Now, I'm definitely still a big fan of just the classic game of Tippi Tree. I think the simplicity almost adds to the game. It makes it very easy to explain to new players, and there's just something beautiful about just stacking leaves. That said, bringing in all of these different parts, you can make some really wild trees, and that can be really fun as well. Whoa, now that is a Tippi Tree. One thing I've always loved about this game is that it requires you to build a kind of innate understanding of balance and physics in order to get really good and build these crazy trees. I think it's always a winning combination when you can successfully bring together entertainment and education, so I'm really excited about that with Tippi Tree, and it's also why I've partnered with today's sponsor, Brilliant. Phew, it sure can be tiring holding up such a big brain. But what can I say? Ever since I started following these courses on Brilliant, I can't stop learning. Not that I'm complaining. Expanding your critical thinking and problem-solving skills is like gaining real-life superpowers. You just understand the world around you a little bit better. And with Brilliant, that's easier than ever. See, Brilliant is this online educational platform that features a broad range of math and science courses to train your intellect. And if massive textbooks and long lectures aren't your thing, fear not, because Brilliant has built their lessons from the ground up to not only be informative and approachable, but actually fun and even kind of addictive. Every course is filled with engaging interactive elements, so it almost just feels like a game. Speaking of games, if you really want to be a Tippi Tree master, I highly recommend their course on scientific thinking. It's all about solving puzzles in our natural world by building an intuitive understanding of the laws of physics. There's a specific lesson on balance where you build hanging mobiles to learn how forces are distributed in a dynamic system. It's exactly the kind of thing that would help you build crazy Tippi Tree structures. Brilliant offers courses on everything from the basic fundamentals on up to super advanced subjects like multivariable calculus, cryptocurrencies, and neural networks. So there's something for just about anyone to learn. What's more, these courses have been designed by award-winning teachers, researchers, and professionals from the likes of MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, and Google, so you know you're in good hands. So, if you're ready to level up your brain power, visit brilliant.org/makeanything to get started with 20% off your premium membership. You'll be helping my channel by supporting my sponsor, but more importantly, you'll be helping yourself. Once again, that's brilliant.org/makeanything, or just follow the link in the video description. Okay, we're almost done, but I've got one more exciting print to share with you today. In my original Tippi Tree video, I showed off this adorable little tiny Tippi Tree. Super cute. But what about going in the opposite direction? Oh yeah, that's right, it's a giant Tippi Tree. And unlike the tiny guy over here, I didn't have to create a special model to scale things up. I literally just brought it into the slicer and printed it bigger. Of course, I also had to print some giant leaves. So this tree is actually printed with Filamentums timber fill, so it's got this lovely woody texture. And I printed this on my Anycubic Chiron. This timber fill is a pretty rough and brittle filament, so it can be really tricky to print with a regular 0.4mm nozzle. So I went ahead and used a 1mm nozzle to print this giant guy right here, and I think it came out really great. There was definitely some stringing happening with the original print, but this filament is really easy to process as well, so I was able to quickly scrape off any extra strings, and now we've got this beautiful guy right here. These leaves are also beautiful. They were printed with Polyalchemy's Elixir filament, although I gotta say, I'm not sure this was a great idea because these things are pretty beefy. I actually dropped a few and they ended up just exploding, so yeah, that's why I'm not sure it's a great idea. I definitely want to make even bigger Tippi trees, but I'm not sure 3D printing is the right approach. So I'm gonna have to consider some different methods of production, as rare as that is. Anyways, I did already print this massive tree, so let's see if I can stack all of the leaves. Yeah, that's terrifying. Well, maybe I'll give it another shot during a live stream or something. But for now, how about we call it a day? Wait! There's one more thing, because I just got my package from Angled.io. In case you missed it, I teamed up with Angled.io to offer some of my models printed on demand. So those of you without 3D printers can still order Tippi Tree and some other of my favorite prints. Obviously, I have plenty of 3D printers, but I decided to order one anyways because I consider this a little piece of history. So let's open it up. All right, how exciting. Here we have it. The Tippi Tree Jungle set, which comes with plenty of branches and enough pieces for a nice 4-player game. There we go. There we go. Sure enough, the tolerances on these are pretty much perfect. Oh yeah, I'm super pleased with this and really impressed by the first layers. Look at those clean first layers. They look absolutely flawless. So it looks like the Slant 3D print farm is very well tuned. Awesome stuff. So Angled.io actually works with Slant 3D's print farm. They're pretty much different offshoots of the same company. And all of these parts are pretty much automatically printed. You put in an order and their printers go off to the races. So this tree is super Tippi, which is quite nice. And I think the tolerances are really accurate. So we can have a fun game of Tippi Tree here. Now this is just a printing service, so you're gonna have to download the manual from my website and come up with your own storage solution. Personally, I like using these cotton bags as a quick and easy solution to just throw everything in there. Other people might have more elegant storage solutions, but hey, that's just how I roll. That's the test right there. It just barely grabs on like that. So that's how we know the tolerances here are really well done. How cool! I'm super excited about this partnership with Angled.io. I do get a small commission for each sale, but more than anything, I just wanted to make this game available to as many people as possible. So this is an awesome way to do that. So whether you want to buy Tippi Tree printed on demand or print all the parts for yourself, I'll put all the important links in the description for this video. Also, thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. I'll put their link in the description as well. And thank you so much for watching through this whole video and sharing my excitement about Tippi Tree. Now that's really it for today, but I'm definitely gonna keep doing stuff with Tippi Tree, so leave any suggestions you've got in the comments. If you like what I'm doing, like the video, subscribe to see what comes out next. But until then, I'm Devin, this is Make Anything, and as always, stay inspired. Well, that didn't take long.